The 2024 election is shaping up to be one of the most divisive elections in American history, and most Americans aren't preparing for what's to come. So, currently, 2024, it's being a pretty bad year. I mean, we got political assassinations, we got extreme divisiveness, we got a media completely armed against the population.
And I don't know if you've noticed, but Donald Trump is a fascist. Too harsh, you say? Fine.
It's going crazy, and really, the only record of this, of what our current state is right now, is the late Roman Republic. And not to remind you about tons of history, but late Roman Republic, a lot of dictators and a lot of civil war, definitely a lot of coups also. So if that's anything to go by, we're heading towards some turbulent times, and it's pretty likely that we're going to have a civil war, or something like that. Now, is it going to be like a civil war like last time? Well, given the fact that the military is the main way you win civil wars, and the military is heavily biased towards the right, so really, all the right needs to do is just whip out the military and then they win. Because the right, they have a lot more martial culture, and also the left, they just actively hate militarism or masculinity, which is what you need to win civil wars. Really, the left winning in civil wars mostly was because they still had that martial culture. The Bolsheviks in Russia, they still had a martial culture. They didn't despise men and martial traits. They used the army to their best advantage, and they actually won the Civil War. And also, another key problem that the right completely avoids currently is that having ideological unity in a civil war is probably the best thing that you could ever have. Pretty much every side of a civil war that has multiple factions fighting for power, they always lose. Republicans in Spain, whites in Russia, all of these groups, they were completely divided outside of a similar hate towards the enemy team, which that's not enough of a unifier because you're just going to end up fighting amongst yourself, and then that leads to your opponent winning. And currently, the left, they are extremely divided amongst themselves over radicalism and somewhat radicalism, while the right, it's pretty much based around conservatism and Trump populism. That's pretty much the unifying ideology, and there's not that much division. The Democrats look like they're about to split apart at this rate because one side is so goddamn radical that they're making Bernie Sanders look moderate, and then you got the deep state Democrat Party, which it's still radical, but definitely less than the like anti-Israel, full-on Marxist side. And given that, I wouldn't be shocked if they start splitting apart, especially if America goes into a civil war, because they don't really agree on much, and it makes a lot more sense for them to split into separate groups because they fundamentally contradict each other, especially on Israel, especially on economics, because you got one side that still stands for mostly free market economics, and then one side that's like full on socialism, and then another side, they stand with Israel, and then the other side, they stand with Palestine and actively hate the USA. And really, that's not what you want when you're trying to fight a civil war, which it's looking pretty likely this election because, again, I'm not betting on anything. I'm just saying that given the current track record and given the historical precedent, this is the perfect time for a civil war. There has never been so much political divisiveness than this election, and there has never been so much ability and so much coked up negativity to spark a civil war. We've only seen this in American history back in 1860. Guess what happened? And really, anyone who wins, it's still going to start a civil war. If Kamala wins, I mean, it's still probably going to start a civil war, but definitely less so, because, I mean, the main reason the civil war would start is that the right accuses her of winning by cheating, and that starts the civil war because they think that she cheated. But that also could be how they lose, because the only way the right could possibly lose is that they start a rebellion that's too early and clearly illegal, and then the military just crushes it because the military, thankfully, instead of being like other civilizations where just winning the support of the military, you just take over the government, the military is very loyal to the government. No matter who's in power, military is very loyal to the government, and it'll take a lot for them to completely defect and fight against the government, because the military, the left could just use it to crush the rebels, and then the right can't gain power because now they're viewed as traitors. That's pretty much the only way that the Republicans can possibly lose, and the right could lose the Civil War. If it even was a civil war, it would more so be like January 6th on steroids, where they completely denounce the rebels and the right is locked out of power. Now, the way that the right could possibly win, full on civil war, the military is going to go to the right if that happens, and just the right in general has way more military expertise and way more experience with militarism. Really, the only armed faction of the left is Antifa. That's not too big of a faction, plus most right-wingers, they own guns. So, I mean, they're already armed, and if the military is on their side, they can get training too, and after that, it's all over. And also, another thing about this is that, in terms of geography, the left does not have a great strategy because the right is more like a cohesive blob of the countryside right in the middle of the United States. And then the left is like all these other smaller little blobs, and then you got the West Coast, you got the East Coast, and then you got little blobs throughout the United States, which would be completely taken over by the right within couple weeks, not even that long. And then it would essentially be a East Coast command and then a West Coast command where they're just fighting for themselves, and the right just completely demolishes them because really the right has every single advantage in terms of a civil war. They have all of the resources, they have pretty much all of the manpower, and they have tons of military expertise, and it's practically inevitable at this rate. Just given the fact that Americans are so divided, it doesn't really take that much for them to go to the next step, which is, I'm just gonna overthrow the government, or I'm just gonna kill anyone I disagree with. I mean, we've already seen that. Trump's assassination, that seemed like a great opportunity for a civil war to start. If he actually died, the civil war would have already started. That is a amazing way to start a civil war, is killing your political opponent.
Make a wish, Canada. Don't miss Trump next time.
Uh-oh, Richard!
The only way that we can stop the Civil War, the only way that we can actually restore peace, is turn down the political temperature. Stop calling all of your enemies fascists. Stop saying that they're going to be the end of democracy. That is the reason why the Civil War is practically inevitable at this point. Because you keep calling all of your enemies fascists, dictators, all of these names, and believe it or not, people respond to that. The Trump assassin surely did, and he tried to kill him. Don't think that he's going to be the last one who tries, or don't think that he's the last one to say, well, since my opponent is an evil fascist, I'm just going to destroy them. I'm just going to crush them. And if that happens, oh boy, you're going to see a lot of violence. Full-scale civil war. You're going to see a lot of bloodshed. I'm talking about the actual bloodshed, not the economic bloodshed that Trump was talking about. You're going to see, like, real bloodshed. And it is not going to be pretty, but you kind of brought it on to yourself. And I'm giving you the advice right now. Turn down the political temperature, stop calling all of your opponents fascist, and then maybe you can avoid civil war. Maybe you can learn a thing from Rome and stop calling all of your enemies dictators and stop calling them all these awful words, because believe it or not, people are going to respond to that with actual violence, and we've already seen that. yet you still haven't learned your lesson. And I guess Civil War is going to be you learning your lesson. But anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.